Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Awais Ahmed and you're watching Hashtags. In this video, we'll be learning about farms. How do we work with the farms in React? Without wasting the time, let's get into the video. Just like HTML, React uses farms to allow the users to interact with a web page. What do we actually mean by handling farms? It is about how to handle the data when the input value gets changed or the farm is submitted. In HTML, the form data it is handled by the DOM, but in React, the form data is handled by the components. As the data is handled by the components, so all the data is stored in the component states variable. So that's clear that we'll be working with the states variable in order to handle the data and work with the forms. We can control the changes by onChange event. For example, when user types something or user changes the value of the dropdown, we can use the onChange event handler to handle the data and to update the states value. Let's jump into our code editor and create a component called myFarm. Inside the return statement, I will type farm. Inside the farm, I will type label, enter your name, and then I'll write the code for input field. Input type is equal to text, placeholder is equal to John Doe. And then I'll add a line break, and then I'll add a button, type is equal to submit. Now let's import that component into our app.js file. Open the terminal and type npm start command to start the project. Let's check our web browser. Finally, the form is rendering. Let me add the data to the form and submit it. I'll type the name and submit it. Did you guys notice when I submit the data, it actually refreshes the page? But generally, that is not what we want to happen in React. We want the data and the events to be controlled by React. We want to prevent this default behavior and let React control the form. And without refreshing the page, we want to submit that data. Let's jump into our code editor and create a state variable called name and give it a default value. You can also leave it empty if you don't want to give it a value. And in the input element, we'll give it a value. Value is equal to curly braces name, and we'll add an onChange event handler. We'll type onChange is equal to curly braces. We'll pass an arrow function, and we'll pass e as a parameter, and we'll update the state value. We'll type set name e.target.value. And now we'll add a handler for the form submission. We'll type const handler is equal to arrow function. We'll be passing e, and we want to prevent the form submission. So we will type e.prevent default, and in the form we will type on submit is equal to curly braces, and we'll pass the handler name that is handler, and inside the handler function we will type alert name. Now whenever this form is submitted, this handler function is called, and it prevents the form to be submitted, and then let's check the web browser now. I'll type the name and click on the submit button. You guys can see that it's not refreshing the web page now. So that is how the form work in React. But there's one thing you might be thinking, if it's not submitting actually, then how we're gonna save the data? Basically, we are using REST APIs in order to store the data. React is only responsible for the front end, so we won't be storing anything in React. Rather, we'll be working with REST APIs in order to store the data. We'll be discussing about the REST APIs in the future videos. Now let's add a dropdown into our form. I will type label, gender, and then BR. I'll type select, and it will have two values, male and female. And definitely, in order to manage the state of the select, we'll need to create another state variable called gender, and we will set its default value to male. And in the select element, we'll set the two attributes. The first one is value is equal to curly braces and the state, that is gender. And then we'll add an event handler called onChange. And similar to that name input, we'll be changing the value of the state. Whenever the user changes the value of the drop down, it should update the state's value as well. And in the handler, I will command the alert message, and I will add a console.log. Name is and name, and gender is. Now let's check our web browser and type the name and select the drop down value, and then click on the submit button. Now right click on your web page and click on the inspect and go to the console tab. We can say it is working fine. It's finally printing the message inside your console screen. So that is how it works in React. Now let's add another form control that is called text area. This is a slight difference in adding the text area in your React versus HTML. In React, we'll just type the text area, value is equal to curly braces, onChange is equal to curly braces. Definitely, it's a form control, and we'll have to create another state variable in order to work with that text area. So I will add another state called bio and set its default value to empty string. We'll add label bio and in text area I will assign value is equal to bio and pass an error function to update the value of the state. And inside the handler I will add another console.log and type bio. Now let's check our web browser. I will fill in the form. I'll type the name, select the gender, and write something in the bio, and then click on the submit. Now right click on your web page, click on inspect, and go to the console tab. We can say it is printing the messages in the console screen. That is how the forms work in React. I hope now you guys have an idea of the forms and how to work with form in React. But still, if you have any question, you can join my Discord community for a discussion, or you can also put your question in the comment section. I'll try my best to answer you as soon as possible. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Till that, take care. Allah Hafiz.